Did you take note of the Ariete stone, the symbols on them? So there are exactly 16 symbols.
How about that?
On
FF16, yeah.
And lo, the creator did make the elements 8 icons to serve the keepers of the one law.
8 holy
8
icons.
Dominants, 8 icons.
8 icons. This is good because you mentioned there were 16.
Yes. That could be that. Yes, that actually
8,
could be it. There could
because
be
there's 2 dominants of each element.
Welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Mike.
My name is Kason.
We're here to talk with you about Final Fantasy 16 again for the second time.
Yep.
So there's some things to go back over from last time, to recant, to correct ourselves on. This is the first time we've done a podcast series like this, where we hadn't, at least one of us hadn't played the game before, or I guess that's not true because Xeno Saga. But we had a guest on who had played it
That's
before.
right. That helped us.
So this is the first time we're both totally in the blind and nobody freaking knows what's happening.
Right.
And there are things we miss. And so there's a couple things I want to go over from last time. But we had left off right at the end of where essentially the demo had ended.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to be continuing on from the Nysa Defile, and we're going to go all the way through the second icon battle between Ifrit and Garuda. That's where we're going to leave off for today. That's our plan. First of all, there's a lot of people commenting, hey, you're asking these questions. Those answers are in the ATL.
Yeah.
I'm guessing these people did not see our live stream where we talked about how we don't like the ATL that much. Not as a resource. As a resource, it's great.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I don't like interrupting a scene in the middle of a scene to go read a lore log of stuff. I was waiting because I had been told there's a character you meet, which we'll talk about a little bit today, who sort of is like a record keeper, guy who talks about all the ancient history. And
the 1,000 tomes.
Yeah, the 1,000 tomes.
Yeah,
that's what it's
so
called.
cool.
Yeah. So I decided to wait until that point before I'd go into reading all the lore stuff and kind of knock that all out, like when I'm back at the Hideaway, kind of look through those and stuff. So that was why, because I don't want to keep pausing the game and like reading lore. I want to see the flow of the scene. I want to, and it just, for me, it bothered me to sort of interrupt the game like that.
Because you lose access to it after a certain point of time.
Yes.
And then you can't see it again. If you didn't do it right then, you kind of miss it until you get to that guy.
Until you get to that guy. That was the first part. The second one was, and I had actually noticed this before the episode came out as well, because we did the live stream. So we recorded the first episode like Saturday or Friday before the game came out, or was it Thursday? I can't remember. The week before the game came out.
Yeah.
Then we did a live stream on Tuesday, 2 days before the game came out, where we played the demo, and I went, that's not what I thought it was, which is the dog, seeing through the dog's eyes, and the colors are different.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of just how all of the POVs look from any icon at all. So, like, even Joshua, when he's the Phoenix, he has the same sort of, like, tinted color for his vision in first person. I believe they also do it in a POV for Garuda at some point, and so that's just what it looks like when you are an icon now, and you're just seeing first person.
Yes, but when it's third person, what does that mean?
Well, that's the thing. That's the part that is still a mystery. And
why does he say the dog's name?
How was he looking at Ifrit?
Yeah.
Beating up and killing Phoenix from a distance when he was, because as we found out in this episode, he truly was Ifrit, which is we all expected that going in. That's what the marketing sort of alluded to very strongly. That was clearly the answer. I mean, like all the images, even like key art that they show is like Clive with like Ifrit behind him. He's the dominant of Ifrit. That was like clearly known before going into it. What threw me for a loop was he seemed to be, like we said, warging into Torgal or something like that.
Yeah.
And I still think something like that happened. That he didn't, this is a guess, this is speculation, he didn't kill Joshua. But that's kind of where we left off today, kind of where it's going next is, okay, this dominant's still out there. let's go find out what happened, because he was there on that day.
Yeah.
And I lost control, and, you know, like, he had something to do with it.
This hooded figure.
Right. So, like, that's kind of the new mystery that Clive is chasing. Rather than revenge on the guy, he's just wanting to find out, okay, what role did you play, because you were there. So, like, something happened. So, anyway, that was the other thing I wanted to correct. And then, yeah, I think that was it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so we jump back 13 years later, back to battle.
Then, right?
Yeah.
Like right after he had passed out?
Yeah.
Because you look and you still see the blood underneath the rock.
Yep.
Of like the previous guy. Yeah.
Smashed.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Year of the Realm 875, back on the Nysa Defile. So we're now after the battle between Titan and Shiva. The Eikons are gone. They've gone back to their regular human forms.
Yeah, they've kind of disappeared, yeah.
And so despite all that's happened, despite all of that, and Bias getting killed and wrenches getting thrown into their assassination plan, the Sergeant is still determined to kill Shiva's dominant. He's like, but he basically said, I think Clive says, "We're down a man, Sergeant," as if like, you know, slow down for a second. Like, we need to rethink this. So he says, if we return without Shiva's head, our fate will be no different from Biast's. I'll take my chances with the Iron Blood. At least then I might die fighting. After you do, that is. He says to Clive. And Clive says, I won't be dying, not today. And I kind of liked the other guy. I think his name
was really
Avis.
funny.
Avis was his name. He kind of had a funny line there. Okay, so we all agree, like, no dying.
Then it's settled. No dying. Like, okay, he's like, come on, guys, can we keep moving? Just stop arguing about dumb stuff.
So they keep moving, and they find sort of a group of Iron Blood soldiers marching. By the way, I believe that these are the Crusaders they've been talking about. They're Iron Blood Crusaders. They seem to have Shiva's dominant, who is Jill, as a hostage. I was confused as to why it took quite so long for Clive to recognize her. I guess
I know, because I kind of recognized her pretty right.
But I guess you could explain that as it's been 13 years. You haven't seen somebody in 13 years. You probably assumed they were dead.
You're right, although the way
we, as the player, saw her like 10 seconds ago. He gets in close. I mean, you fight Jill here, and he doesn't recognize her till kind of the last second. But so essentially here, we got... They're trying to get Jill to prime again. So priming is where they essentially transform into the Eikon.
Right,
but they have to draw like an F ton of ether to do this. And she's already done it, and so she's weak. So she can't prime right now. So they're trying to threaten this little girl who's also a prisoner.
Yes.
And I'll kill her if you don't prime, but she's incapable of priming.
No, I understand the idea of when you capture an enemy... You want them to fight for you. You have to threaten them to do it, and they are essentially a slave, and if you let them free, they'll use their power to kill you.
Yes.
Now, first off, I don't know why Shiva doesn't just kill them anyways. Like, they're threatening the kids. When she becomes Shiva, she, like, can do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But she doesn't. She does what they tell her to do, and she fights for them, but she's a slave. I get that. But she's a high value asset that you would do anything you could to protect. I think I could.
So... Okay, I'm a little bit like scatterbrained here. I think the intention of the scene is that they want her to fight against the assassin guys coming in here.
Yeah.
Because they assume that a dominant like her would be able to easily kill
defeat
some
them.
branded soldiers. She's the best option here to kill these guys and allow us to get our priests out of here, for instance, because they're traveling with like their priest guys they're of their Orthodox faith that they talk about a little bit. I took some dialogue for that.
Okay.
So I think it's more like get the priests to safety and the other slaves and kill those guys.
And
these soldiers and also you, who is stronger than all of us. I believe that's the intention there. Even though you can't prime, you can still use ice magic, and you're powerful, and you can kill them. And if you don't, then I'll kill this little girl that you don't want me to kill. Like, threatening her so that she'll actually... I think that's the intention. I guess in the other territories, though, like, say, Hugo Kupka, or whatever his name is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, without Shiva, Titan can just run roughshod. He can destroy their entire army.
Well, like, just in the politics of the world... he basically runs the show in the Republic.
Right.
So
He's
that's what I would assume most dominates would do.
Right.
Right?
It's just she's been enslaved from a previous kingdom.
So she got captured when the Iron Blood overran Rosaria.
Right.
So after the Phoenix Gate scene, and the Duke is dead, and Joshua is dead, and Clive is taken as a slave, and the Duchess goes to the Empire, there's no leaders left. Many of the army had gone or whatever. The Iron Blood pounce on that opportunity. They come and they take her with them.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing since the time she was a little girl, they sort of use these kinds of threats of like, we'll hurt this person if you don't do what we say. And so she's been sort of like, she's been sort of manipulated that way.
Here's where I'm coming from. I really liked it. I really liked the display of when the dominants first show up, and you've got Titan and Shiva, and it's like, ooh, who's going to use the dominant and when and where. There was a ton of strategy to it, and if they don't use it, then that's fine because we won't use ours, and then we can just fight the war normally. And then it shows an act of desperation when you bring out your dominant, because if they're dead, your empire's done for, right?
Yeah.
And I loved that strategy there. Like there was a lot of interesting, like, I don't know, battlefield mechanics going on there of like you think of the game Stratego, right?
Yeah.
You don't put your spy up like in the front lines. You organize everything in a proper way and in a deceptive way, and then you try to lure people in one way. For them to be so careless with Jill, it shocks me, given that I was so appreciative of the battlefield tactics before this concerning the Titans, because they are number one most important, right? That's your nuclear arsenal.
Yes.
And you're just like letting other people have it. Anyways, I'm not...
No,
there's a bit of contrast here. It seems a little too easy for us to get Jill compared with how strategic they were beforehand.
Yes, that's the part that I agree with. I think the intention here was that, she's strong and we need to get our priests out. But I think you're right in that let the priests die because we need you to be Shiva again in our next battle.
Without your Titan,
should or would generally be way more of an urgent sort of like priority here.
Right.
Get Jill out. Don't let them take her, because that's what they're there for anyway. They're there to kill her. And that's taking away
and it seemed
their
like they
most
knew it.
powerful weapon.
Yeah.
I feel like I agree that there's something a little bit off about this particular scene, and that's one thing is Jill. There's this thing about the orthodoxy I want to talk about here.
Okay.
So, they're talking about how our fortunes have turned. Sergeant, it's her. They see her down there, the dominant. That's who they're after. The crystalline Orthodox. So this is the religion of the Ironborn, or Iron Blood. And it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have its origins in their kingdom. It talks about in the Active Time lore how this was practiced or is practiced in other places in the continents, but this is like the dominant religion of the Iron Kingdom right now. So the crystalline Orthodox is a backwards faith for a backwards people. In the Iron Kingdom, they teach the dominants are unclean aberrations born of blackest sin. Only their priests are allowed to perform the rites of priming, and I see many. So there's a bunch of priests down there walking in the company. So you go into it and read a little bit more, and it talks about how they worship the mother crystals as like literal gods, and that the use, or in particular the wasteful use of magic and of ether, which is provided to the world, gives the world its sort of life force, I guess, it comes from the crystals. So to use that power, that ether, that life force in a way that is wasteful, according to their doctrine, is seen as a sin, right? So they hate the way that people in sort of the main kingdoms here, right, the different places in the continents, the twins is what they call them. There's two continents, Storm and Ash. How they just sort of keep these people who can use magic, and how they use the crystals for, trivial things, right? So that's kind of their beef, I guess, with the people of the mainland. Now, I took note of what Jill says here before the battle starts. She says, "Let this be the end," before she attacks you. And then once you've defeated her in the fight, she says, "At last." So it's almost like, I hope you kill me.
She wants to die. Yeah.
I hope you kill me and that this can be over. I'm tired of this. Because it's been 13 years, I guess, that she's been forced to fight for these Ironblood, right?
Right, yeah.
So she wanted to die in this fight. But she also wanted to make it at least appear that she was trying to fight so that they wouldn't kill any of the other slaves that they were, So this is where Clive realizes Jill. He's kind of standing above her. He's got his sword to her neck or whatever. Yeah. They're like, "Come on, like, what are you doing? Hurry up." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, this can't be. Like, no, it can't be you here. Like, what?" He recognizes her. More Ironblood show up, more reinforcements. So he kind of takes her away from the fighting, but because Avis gets like hit by an axe.
Oh, yeah, that's
just
right.
thrown and he goes down, so it's just Tiamat and Clive left.
Yeah. And Tiamat is like one, because as soon as Clive picks up Jill and starts walking away, Tiamat's like, "What are you doing?" And Clive has this really good line. He says, "My service was bought with this brand, but not my loyalty."
Yep.
Because the guy's saying, "Hey, are you going to really dishonor the Empire?" And he's like, "I'm not loyal to the Empire.
Yep.
You just paid for my services. You didn't buy my loyalty. You can't do that."
Yeah.
And so Tiamat's upset because Tiamat's going to die if he comes back empty-handed, right? And so he's like, "We have to do this properly." And Clive is basically signing Tiamat's death by saving Jill.
Yep.
And so either way, Tiamat's like, "Well, I'm going to die either way. I'm at least going to try to complete the mission."
Yeah. Yeah, I think he says something like, "I only fight for survival," or something like that.
Yeah,
Tiamat,
yes.
Tiamat says, "You don't think I do as well?" Like,
yes, yeah.
But then he goes into this whole thing about how I rescued you from the front lines. I picked you out and made you part of this group of assassins, and trained you and gave you the name Wyvern.
Right.
And I loved Clive's response to that, which is, "I've always had a name and I've never forgotten it."
Tiamat doesn't know who Clive is, and that's it's unfortunate for him.
Yes,
right?
He doesn't realize.
But it's not like Clive could be so forthcoming about his past. He kind of had to keep it hidden.
Here was another question I had, sort of just like asking questions that I'm not sure that were well answered in the scene. Several times through the earlier part of this scene in the Nysa Defile, Tiamat brings up, "You are key to this mission's success. You are not allowed to die." So
do they know about him then?
Well, I don't know why he said that, because now he's willing to kill Clive, so he can die, and he's not key to the mission's success if Tiamat can carry it out. So I mean, their job was just to kill Shiva, and I'm assuming, I guess, that he thought, in order for you to fight the dominant of Shiva, we need someone with the blessing of the Phoenix or something like that, with that kind of power. Maybe since they've already incapacitated her, him being the key to the mission success, he's carried that part out already. Maybe now it's just, we just got to cut her head off and leave, and so he's fulfilled that. But I just was like, wait a minute, like, you're willing to kill him, whereas before you were like, no, you're desperate, like, you cannot die, not at all, like, no way, you have to stay alive, and you're super key to this. Anyway, it's probably that. It's probably that he felt they could not have taken Jill out without Clive, and maybe the fact that Clive fought her and she's knocked out, that was what he meant. But
sure, I mean, more or less that is what happened. But
right, so now he's ready to kill him.
And defectors, like deserters, they just are usually quickly found out by the Empire. So
he ends up killing Tiamat, and then a bunch of Ironblood show up. He's basically holding her, ready for the killing blow. Yeah. And then Sid shows up, who is the dominant of Rama.
Yeah.
And these were some really cool shots, actually.
Very cool.
The slow motion shots of all those, like, that lightning. Just like jacking everybody.
It was, 3 dominants all together. Very, very lucky.
That's the first thought I had too. This seems like a convenient rescue.
It's like, wow,
and
little
then
Deus Ex Machina.
I thought about it more, and it's like, this is what Sid is doing. He goes to places where Branded and Dominants are, and tries to bring them to where they can be freed now. And Jill in particular, I'm assuming his scouts and his intelligence guys would have known she's fighting against her will for the Iron Blood. She's a prime candidate.
You're right. He probably would have known.
Yeah, a prime candidate to try to go get out of that situation, rescue, and bring to our place.
Well, that's a good point. I like it. Yeah. But that perspective helps me a lot. That's good.
So he was there to get her from... Because I think that's what he says to Clive. Like, I didn't come here for you. He recognizes him because he sees the Phoenix powers, and he's like, oh, that's Clive Rossfield. I didn't realize you were still alive. That's crazy. But I don't really care. I didn't come here for you. I came for her. So that's my assumption, is that he's building his little... So they were
two people independently who kind of like converged at this point.
Yes.
But it makes sense, though, because at this battle, the Empire knew. They were like, hey, Shiva's going to show up in this battle. Yeah. If the Empire knew that, it's likely other people knew it too. Yes. Where it's like, hey, if this battle happens and if Titan shows up, Shiva's going to show up. Yeah. So if Sid wants Shiva, he would also do the same thing that the Empire did. Right. I like that. I think that's good. That makes a lot more sense.
And he's probably sent out, Gav or his intelligence dude to go find out.
Gav's a beast.
Yeah, go find out where they're going to be, collect his intelligence, and so that's why he would have been at that battle. So that made sense to me when I thought about it a little more. But it did feel a little, like you're saying, a little convenient.
It did
at the start.
It did.
I think it does make sense though. So, but what's convenient? The convenient part is Torgal. He just happens to have Torgal.
Torgal shows up.
It's just like, I got your dog. I would have liked maybe a little bit of a better sort of reunion between maybe the dog was out wild with the wolves, and you get attacked by wolves at one point, and Torgal's there. And
just wait for another few scenes later, and that's where Torgal shows up. Yeah.
Instead of
right there.
That was another thing I think that lent itself to making this scene feel very like a lot of very convenient things are happening. Mm-hmm. Things are falling into a place in a way that doesn't necessarily feel super convincing.
Yeah. And part of that, the enemy strategy. I'm just not a fan of the enemy strategy.
Yeah,
but
I think
sometimes people have bad strategies and make poor wartime decisions. That is a thing that
does happen.
It does happen often.
Okay, so we also get a scene here where Benedikta is sort of looking out over. She sees some of the lightning.
That's right. Yes, so she knows what that is.
Yeah, she has a history with Sid, right?
Yeah.
And so she's talking badly about Hugo, who before she had been sort of pretending to be in love with, right? So she's definitely she's sleeping with a lot of different people here.
Yes, she is.
And kind of navigating the politics of it all and manipulating people. And but she seems to have had a real connection, a real romance with Sid in the past.
Previously, yeah.
Yeah. And she's playing with Hugo and playing with the King of Waloed. I mean, I assume that's the case. I mean, she seems to at least have some true loyalty to the King of Waloed, but she's not in love with him like she was with Sid. I think she's playing that relationship to her advantage.
Well, and one of the things she says here, as far as Titan goes, Kupka,
Hugo Kupka.
Yes, who she was, being very intimate with. She basically said at the end of the battle, she was like, wow, it looks like the lion should have taken a little more care when chasing after the hare.
Yeah.
Or were you the hare or the lion? She's basically just questioning his masculinity at that point. She's just like,
she expected more from the mighty Titan. Yep. You get that line, you were always an effing snake, Sid. So she's bitter about something there. And then also, I guess, just to kind of wrap up this scene, we have Clive agreeing to go with Sid back to his hideaway or whatever. They've got warm beds. They can, because where would he have gone with Jill?
Clive,
right? Where would he go as a Branded anywhere else in this world?
Yeah, they would.
You got that tattoo on your face, you're looked at as subhuman. It's like, wait a minute, where's your slave master at? You're not supposed, So he couldn't have gotten far by himself. So Sid showing up and offering for them to come with him, it's obviously the best option they've got.
Yeah.
So he, decides to trust him. and go back to his hideaway, which is in the middle of the Deadlands.
Yeah, I love that.
So yeah, this is an area of the world where most of the ether has sort of been dried up from the land.
Yeah.
So
Sid says the blight has sucked this place dry.
Yep.
So it makes it seem as though the blight affects more than just people. It is a sickness of the land
Yes.
as well.
Mhm.
It's a sickness of everything.
Yep. So there are no trees, no birds, no magic. But it also means no neighbors.
Yes.
Which is a good place for hideaway. So, the last place they would think to look, right?
Yeah.
They also bring up here for the first time this these fallen ruins from an ancient civilization they call the Fallen, right?
Yeah.
These ruins are kind of scattered all throughout the world, and people have sort of just built around them.
Yeah.
So they're just these fallen airships and these
that's right.
structures made out of a material that's stronger than any material the current people have.
Right.
And so they can't really use them or mine them or repurpose them. They don't have the skill to do that. But they just kind of build around the structures because they're very sound structures. It's just they don't really understand the civilization that put them there or why or how
and
they went away.
They look really, really cool. The hideaway looks sweet.
I like the hideaway.
It looks awesome.
Yeah. So he says, this place, there are fallen ruins, says Clive. And then Sid says, well, we didn't think they'd mind, and it keeps the black from our lungs. So I'm guessing there must be some sort of the blight, the disease.
Right.
When they're inside the hideaway, it sort of protects them from whatever illness, I guess.
These ancient structures kind of have a magic barrier about them or something?
Or something of that nature, yeah. So it's like, they're living somewhere where the blight has totally taken it over.
Yeah.
So why aren't they getting sick? Well, it's
Right.
because they're hiding inside of these fallen ancient ruins or whatever, which sort of protects them from whatever that illness is that the blight would give them.
And they have a really good doctor.
They do. They have a botanist as well and a bunch of other people. I loved this question from Clive. How do you survive without magic? And the response, how does anyone with a lot of hard work and a bit of noose? So that word...
Yeah, did you?
Yeah, I looked it up. It means like reason or logic as opposed to a sense perception, the rational part of the human soul.
The noose is more like, intellect or attention or something.
Yeah. Another definition, the principle of the cosmic mind or soul responsible for the rational order of the cosmos. So, I guess in this world, the thought is inconceivable to be able to survive at all without magic. That's why they're all fighting over these mother crystals. They're warring over being able to control the territory in which those crystals fall because they rely on the magic from those mother crystals, from the ether that comes from them, and from the crystals they physically mine from them.
And people can't see any other way of living outside of that. And that's very human.
Yeah.
I like that.
And that also goes back to basically the opening monologue of the game, right? The whole thing that's... What did he say? Let me pull that up again. That it was narrated by Clive, right? It was Moss the Chronicler who said that the land of Valisthea is blessed by the light of the crystals, and that it was this light that led our forebears out of the darkness. Yet what they saw in the light gave rise to temptation that ever lures us back into the crystal shadow. And so we talked about how right now they're in the shadow of the crystals in the sense that they feel like they cannot survive without the crystal's blessing.
Right.
So I feel like that's where this story is going, right? It's going into a place where they're going to learn somehow that that this blessing of the crystals and these people who worship the crystals as if they're literal gods, the mothers of this world, we're going to find out that that's not really the case. They really have gone back into the darkness again, into the shadow of the crystals. Now they're going to have to escape that. And so, learning that it's possible to live in a part of the world where the blight has taken over and there's no mother crystals and there's no ether and there's no magic and they're doing just fine, is a pretty big shock to Clive. So Sid then offers him an apple, which he refuses, and he says they grow them here, which is, again, like, what? How can you grow an apple tree in a place infested by the blight.
There's like this inventor guy who's like constantly trying, always trying to get good fruit from the ground.
Yeah, he says, Sid once told me, the blight doesn't kill the land, it only makes her forget who she once was. She'll eventually remember her purpose. All she needs is a little reminding. So they're able to grow some food. They're able to support kind of a small community of people here, and make it, even though they're, in the middle of a blight-infested land. So you're allowed to kind of explore this hideaway a little bit at this point. You go talk to, the different, what's her name? Karen, I think. She's like the person who sells the item shop lady. Yep. The blacksmith guy, the guy who keeps the 1,000 tomes.
The 1,000 tomes. He's at the restaurant, I think.
Yeah,
or near
the
it.
fat chocobo.
Yeah, the fat chocobo. I love that.
So you can do some side quests here for some people. It kind of introduces you to just this whole place as sort of a refuge, a hub area where you'll be returning to between missions.
Yep.
And, in doing some weapon crafting and other parts of the game like that. So you kind of get tutorialized on all that. There's also that, what do they call it? It's that stone where you can go and you can practice.
Oh, yeah, it's across from the Karen.
Arete stone or something like that?
Arete, Arete,
yes,
stone of Arete.
Stone.
Arete in Greek means excellence. So it's a stone of you practice and hone your craft.
Yeah, and so there was a entry, like an ATL entry for this thing too. A mysterious ceramic tablet that stands in the hideaway of a similar construction to other relics of the fallen, yet seemingly not a part of the airship proper. Its imposing appearance suggests some important function that has been lost to time. Whatever strange secrets lie within it, it seems to react to Clive's presence and urges him to unlock his hidden potential. So you can go there, you can practice the combat, which I really like, actually.
Me too. I loved it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I think that this is a combat system that kind of requires a lot of practice to really get used to it and use it efficiently. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you can control all kinds of, sort of factors. You can, the enemies will not, by default, they won't be aggressive. They won't attack you. So you can just practice your button combos without the, fearing getting retaliated against or hit or whatever. And then once you're kind of comfortable with, okay, this combo does this does this. I really like that they did this. I feel like, especially for a series like Final Fantasy, which has traditionally been, a turn-based combat RPG type series, that a lot of fans, longtime fans of the series, maybe aren't so familiar with this type of action game, right?
Yeah.
And so it gives them the opportunity to practice it in a place where they feel, more comfortable, and you can spend as much time in there as you want, just like figuring out how to use your stuff, and then you go unlock new abilities when you fight the next Eikon or whatever, and you come back and you try them out and you unlock new stuff. And I also really like how when you spend the experience to unlock new abilities, it's not permanent. You can basically reset the whole thing and choose all different stuff.
That's really cool.
And it's there's no penalty for doing so.
Yeah.
So it gives you complete freedom to basically figure out how you like to fight and what combos you like to do.
Yeah.
And then just play with that, figure that out, and at any time you can redo it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I think it was really smart to do that, particularly for a series like Final Fantasy, which traditionally has not been this style of game. There's a lot of people who are playing this who have never played a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry or something like that before, and they're not really so sure. They don't feel comfortable, with the combat. If you try to just mash the buttons, you can probably have some success, but you're certainly going to die a lot more than you would if you were actually purposeful in what you're choosing to do and why. Then Torgal gets introduced, which is a whole nother level of I'm controlling this other guy with
that's
the
cool.
D-pad.
Yeah, and you tell Torgal what to do.
But essentially, it's they have the move where he throws them up in the air. Torgal will grab the enemies and throw them up.
Yeah,
and you can go up and start doing your juggling combos in the air, or just the regular sick attack, or he can do a little bit of healing. But there's a lot. There's a lot going on. And I played Dragon's Dogma, which is not very similar to this combat-wise, but there's a lot of like holding R2 to give you like a different set of.
Oh right,
because you have
hotkeys and stuff.
Hotkeys so your face buttons will switch if you're holding the R2 button down. I don't know
what game I played that did
not.
that first, but that's a genius. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and they do the same thing with the D-pad. It's like you can use it for your healing and items, but then you press left and you switch to Torgal, and now you're controlling Torgal with those same buttons.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of switching back and forth between, first of all, the other set of abilities you have with this icon, but then you can switch the icon with L2, and then you switch to R2 to get like the others, and then you're switching Torgal back and forth and healing. It's a lot. It's a lot in real time to kind of, if you're not used to this kind of game.
It is, but I appreciate it, especially for a Final Fantasy, because this is something that, I mean, I don't want to rip on 15 too much.
Sure.
But the complexity of the battle system in 15 wasn't quite, not close to this extent.
Not close.
Not even close. And I was watching trailers for these new games that they announced, a new remake for Star Ocean Second Story, right? Which looks really cool. And one of the features in the trailer, which just irked me, I could not believe it. It said, you can execute all sorts of special combos with just one button. And I was like, that's not a selling point. What are you doing?
Battles take place in real time, and skills can be performed with a single button.
You're making me anyways. The fact that a game that came out of this complex RPG turn-based strategy, type of combat, the fact that it isn't just turning into like hold the button and block attack, roll attack, and that it's turning into a complex action game, that's fine. I feel like that's a much better place for it to naturally go than I think where the previous entry was taking it.
Where 15 was, yeah. I mean, certainly this combat system, and I'm not like a big character action guy. It's not like my favorite style of game. So I'm not even that familiar with, or don't have that much comfort sort of like playing games of this style.
Yeah.
I prefer, as far as action RPGs go, something more like Elden Ring or Monster Hunter or Dragon's Dogma. But that being said, the fact that they give you this area to like sit there and practice stuff is really nice for people who aren't really used to playing games like this.
Yeah.
I feel like no matter your level in terms of comfortability playing this style of action game, you can get where you want to get if you just want to put a little bit of extra time into the practicing. And there's no penalty for doing it. They really incentivize you to do it, actually. They let you totally rearrange your abilities anytime you want. So they're really trying to incentivize players to practice, to get good at the game, rather than just throwing you into really tough fights and letting you get stuck and feel like, I can't win.
Yep.
So I thought that was a nice touch. I thought that was a good decision. And then, of course, they're working that whole mechanic into whatever the purpose of this ancient civilization is going to serve in the story. They're sort of foreshadowing that, with a lot of this technology and stuff like that. So, let's see. I think that's it.
This was another one. Sid offers Clive an apple, and Clive doesn't take it. It reminds me of the apple that the slave had dropped earlier.
Oh, yeah.
There's something about apples. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But there's something interesting with the apples and with somebody handing an apple to Clive, but Clive refusing to eat it, right? And later on, Sid is going to offer him a drink, like some wine.
Yeah.
And Clive is refusing at first, and finally, eventually, when he does drink the wine, he says, "This doesn't mean I agree with you."
Yeah.
But that's what like eating with somebody, communing, partaking of a thing with another person is a sign of like that you're like good with people. Like people invite people invite their allies, or you have a business meeting, and there's always food served because food binds people to each other.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It really does.
It's
right?
a bonding experience.
It's a bonding thing, and so the fact that he's refusing the food means he's refusing to share that bond.
Yes.
And eventually, when he does, he has to then say out loud, "By the way, even though I'm taking what you gave me. I'm not totally bonding with you. He has to like point it out.
Yes.
Because otherwise you would take it as an agreement.
Yeah, right.
I really liked that.
Yeah, so that's when he goes up into Sid's solar,
Yeah.
right, his quarters, right? So they're
The
talking...
headquarters of the Returners hideout.
Right. And so Sid is basically working out, what happened with Clive.
Yeah.
So to save your neck, you slit your... Or to save her neck, sorry, to save Jill's neck, you slit your sergeants. Then you set your sights on the hills, conveniently forgetting how the Empire deals with deserters.
Right, and this is one of the things that's like, okay, deserting is not a good option for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because with that on your chop, the brand,
Yep.
my friend, we both know you won't be getting far. You've fallen a long way, Lord Rossfield. And I think this is basically the only place Clive could go. Because literally any other settlement or any other place resembling civilization at all, someone sees that on his face and it's like, what are you doing? You escaped. I got to go tell the authorities. We got to get you back.
They're not going to give you their food. They're not going to let you sleep in their hotels or their rooms. They're not going to give you anything. They're just going to tell you to leave. He'd have to live out in the forest until somebody found him and killed him.
Yeah. So there was an NPC here who says that if we talk to, forget her name, the healer lady.
Oh, Talia.
Tarya.
And the reason I remember that name is because Talia is the name of the...
But isn't it
lead
Tarja?
T-A-R-J-A.
I thought they pronounced that
Tarja, but the way that it's Finnish. So the name is Finnish.
Oh, okay.
And the way that they enunciate the R's, it actually sounds a little bit more like
an L.
Talia.
Oh,
if you roll the R and then it's a Y and then Talia. Anyways, I would say Talia, but that's the lead singer of Nightwish.
Oh, yeah.
From 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Her name was Talia, and she is
same spelling.
A beast. Yeah, I think the same. The same
Tarja.
spelling. Yeah.
No, J-A. Tarja. I know what to spell.
Talia.
The NPC suggests that you can get your brand removed by her.
That's right.
We haven't really had a chance to talk about that yet with her because she's been helping Jill and other people that came in injured, and she's got a lot of work on her hands at the moment. But at some point, Clive should be able to talk to her about getting that brand
He should,
removed.
but it's interesting that no one else here, if Talia has the ability to do that, but no one else here, everyone else still has their marks.
A lot of people still have them.
It makes me think that maybe it's not an easy thing to do,
Yeah.
or... I don't know. There's something else to it.
Could be some consequences, some risk involved, right?
Yeah.
I think you're right about that because there does seem to be a lot of people who just aren't getting them removed. They're just living here and keeping them. So, or maybe I don't know. Maybe it takes a lot of effort and they're all in a long queue waiting for their turn or something.
That's true. Maybe.
So Clive asks Sid what he means to do with Jill. And he says, nothing. She's free now, basically. If I wanted to use her, do you think I'd be talking to you? All I want to do is help. Dominants like her and branded like you. Of course, the realm doesn't approve, which is why we live in a cave. I feel like Sid and a lot of these characters like Gav and stuff like that, they're serving a really good purpose in this very sort of serious and heavy sort of tone of the story. Sid's a really great character to bring some funny lines. And
I like him.
Levity. I think he's great.
His character's great, and his the voice actor is just extremely
good. He's really good. Yeah, he's
wonderful.
Really, really good. All of the banter between Clive and Sid as they're going about, doing their missions and whatnot is all really good. The performances are great. Yeah. The chemistry is good. We mentioned this last time, but the voice acting is really, really stellar in this game. It's phenomenal.
Love it.
Which is a really, really nice thing to see in this series, which has had questionable sort of voice acting from time to time. Not voice acting talent, just voice direction and things.
Yes, all of it. Yeah.
So it's really nice to see it be so stellar in this game.
And that guy too, the restaurant server. He says, hey, if you go around and deliver the food, if you be a waiter for a few minutes, you can have what's in he calls it a strong box.
Oh, yep, strong box.
You can take a look at my strong box, take whatever you need. And it's so funny because the word for a safe in Spanish is caja fuerte.
Oh, yeah.
Which means strong box.
Strong box, yeah.
So I hear that and I'm just like, oh, it actually does make sense. It's funny that they would use a word like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
To talk about it, though, it's funny.
In Portuguese, caixa forte.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah,
same thing. Yeah, exactly.
And that's how you would say, like, a safe, That's funny.
Yeah. Okay, so one of my scouts sent word. There's a group of branded fugitives north of here in the imperial village of Lost Wing. Among them is one he believes to be a dominant of fire. So he's extending him an olive branch here. Like, I'll help you, like, with this revenge that you're so keen on. Although he continues to try to talk him out of it throughout sort of these missions that go on. But he's like, we need people like you here who actually know how to fight. So why not join us? Where else can you go? He's like, well, I don't really care what happens to me. I just want to take revenge on this guy. So he's like, Sid's playing the long game a little bit here.
Like, he'll come around, right?
Yeah, I'll convince him along the way that, like, there's more to live for than revenge, and it would be a waste of time for you to just, like, allow fate to happen after accomplishing this ridiculous goal you have of revenge. Yeah. But I'll be with him. I'll mentor him the whole time. I'll kind of show him the ropes, show him what's really going on behind the scenes, and maybe we can light a spark in him to, give him some motivation other than revenge.
Yeah.
But that's the first step is, okay, well, I have actually heard of possibly someone that could be the guy you're looking for.
Right.
He's in this village. Why don't we go there and check it out? And that's when Clive says, well, this doesn't mean I'm joining.
Yeah, that's when he drinks the wine and, like, it's temporary. Just for now, okay?
Yeah, but Sid, like I said, he's playing the long game with this part.
That's what everyone needs to know. If you break bread with somebody,
That's
you better make clear that this is only temporary, otherwise they'll assume that...
I'm not your ally, we're just eating. Did you take note of the Ariete stone, the symbols on them? I was curious if you did, because you're usually real into the symbolism and stuff.
So I should come... I'll have to look at that next week. I didn't.
So there are exactly 16 symbols.
How about that? FF16, yeah.
Final Fantasy 16. Yeah. That's really the only connection I thought of. But it's like these little circles with kind of tails on them, all kind of pointing upwards, and they're arranged sort of around.
Oh, I did notice that. Yes.
But yeah, I think what I really took from that was 16. It's because it's Final Fantasy 16. That's the best I could come up with.
No, the 16 is very common in numerology. Oh, please show me the actual stone.
Oh, you're looking for the actual.
Because
there's not a lot of images yet.
You just described to me.
This.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So one of the things that's really frustrating about this game is they have an amazing use of symbols. They're incredibly hard for me to read.
Yeah.
They aren't they look like symbols in our world, but then they don't. They keep throwing in these weird things, and it's so cool that you can design these symbols that are so similar to, symbols that we have, but that they're just so different though. Like there's so much about them where it's like, I don't know exactly what that's saying. Like even the simple design on their cheek. I don't know exactly what that's saying. This here, as I look at it, obviously you have a tail and then you have an arrow pointing upwards. And it looks like an arrow and it's shooting upwards. Now this is really good because there is a line that Sid says here talking about the previous civilization that we mentioned earlier. He says, some say they blocked out the stars.
Yeah.
But down was the only way to go from there. There's probably a lesson to be learned from all that, right?
That's when they go to the woods after this. Yeah.
Yes. So there is a lesson to be learned. It sounds like they were brought back down under the shadow of the crystal, right? That would be a way of looking at that. But this shows an ascent. These are things in ascent, right?
Going up.
This is when this empire, or whatever you want to call it, was...
Former civilization.
As former civilization was ascending. They had their sights set on the stars. They blocked out the stars, right? Of course, whatever made them fall is not represented in their symbology. But this was a high culture that had high sights, right, looking upward. Yeah. And that I can read that from this. Anything else, my gosh, it kind of looks like an arrow-ish, sort of maybe cross /
it's a lot
circular.
Of repetition of just one symbol, the smaller one. That's sort of that is 16 times represented there.
Yeah.
But then there's the thing in the middle, the circle.
The circles.
I don't really know what that.
They're concentric.
Basic.
You have two concentric circles. It's so basic. It's so basic. I don't know what it's saying.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I have difficulty with because there's circles around here as well, right? But then this circle is the only one that's lit up. And the fact that they're concentric circles gives you the idea of something like a target or something like an entrance, like a pathway.
Sure.
You enter in by a certain way, and these are kind of like gates. A stone of Arret is like a gate, right, towards this otherworldly realm. Yeah, where you can just practice in the Eidos, you can practice in the Pleroma, and not have it affect the real world, and then you have to come back, right? But these symbols it's hard for me to read them, and that's very frustrating for me.
Yes.
It's very frustrating, but it's a gate of sorts. It just isn't what I would have shown if I was going to use symbols to signify that it's a gate.
Yeah.
So, but I actually respect it a lot, because they're coming up with original symbols.
Yeah.
Which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's what I got for that.
Yeah.
I love it, though. I think it's cool.
I like the design a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool, but I didn't really know what to think of it beyond that.
Yeah, me neither, honestly.
So, I took down kind of a bunch of different ATL passages. I don't know if we necessarily need to go over all of these now.
I thought about taking some down, but instead I just read them all that I could at the time, and then I was like, I'll just remember them as we go.
Yeah. So, like, we had some questions about how the blessing of the Phoenix works, and
yeah, that was pretty clear.
You get that answered here. The boon Joshua bestowed on his brother Clive.
Yes.
So it was power given to him by Joshua.
By Joshua specifically.
That was a question we had last time, right?
That Clive retains, by the way.
Yeah, he keeps it even after Joshua's gone. So it's a permanent gift.
Very interesting.
Or, permanent sort of bestowal of
in which
power.
case that power basically belongs to Clive now. Like
yes.
he has that power.
And whatever he does with Garuda, he sort of takes it this time. So instead of it being given to him, which is the blessing of Phoenix, he takes the blessing of Garuda somehow. Because I was really confused about that scene, which we're not talking about yet, but like, wait, what happened? She lost it, and then but then she gets it back. And like, what's good? But
yeah, that was strange when she got it back. That was very strange.
I'm pretty sure she was just left weak from him taking the blessing, the same exact style of blessing he got from the Phoenix. So he
but
does
she
not
was saying like, I can't hear her anymore. She's not with me.
Yeah, I think that maybe when Joshua gave the Phoenix, I would assume, again, speculation, he would have also been left weak and maybe like unable to connect with Phoenix for a while, but it was done in this safe environment and he was allowed to rest afterwards.
Okay.
Whereas she didn't expect this to happen, and so she tried to just like immediately like go back to summoning it again and couldn't until she was pushed to like a level of desperation where like something clicked and she like got it back. That's the only way I can make this make sense. Because he didn't take Garuda, he just took the blessing of Garuda, like he has the blessing.
Okay,
of
that
Phoenix.
makes sense. That makes sense because he didn't really summon Garuda or anything.
No,
he didn't seem to be capable of that.
No, he's not. He's not the dominant of Garuda.
That makes sense. I like that.
So anyway,
and then Sid, of course, has Rama's power.
Yes, he's the dominant of Rama. So yeah, we've got like the passage on Metia. I don't know if you read that. The red star. The burning red star that sits beneath the moon. So it always travels with the moon, which means it's not
like the tail.
A part of the firmament. It's not a star out there.
I took a note of that.
Right.
Yeah.
It actually is orbiting the planet with the moon.
But it's not orbiting the moon. It just stays there.
Yeah.
It's just traveling behind the moon.
Right. So there's something to that for sure.
Yeah.
So folklore ascribes to Metia the rule of message bearer to the moon. The role of message bearer to the moon. So it is common custom across Valisthea to wish upon the star that one's heartfelt desires might be conveyed to the heavens and beyond. So that's what...
so the star's like a relay, right?
Yeah.
You wish on the star, and then the star then...
The mediator
puts
to
it
the
out
heavens.
to the heavens, yeah.
Right.
Very cool.
Okay, so that's all that. I don't really have much else from here in the Hideaway to talk about.
I don't either. We're in the forest where we see Benedikta now.
Yeah, so we go to the Greatwood. You fight against that giant, like, lizard-looking dinosaur monster thing, right?
Yeah, that's right, with all the spikes. And
that was a good fight.
That was a good fight. It was.
He does mention, like, Sid says something about, like, he was surprised to see that monster as far south as they were. Like, what the heck is that thing doing so far south? That's a northern enemy. The blight from the north, which we talked about last time, being kind of like a common archetype of sorts for mythos like this.
Yeah.
But I think Clive's answer is looking for food, right? Like the blight has taken the north. There's nothing left up there. It's been forced this far south to like find wolves to eat. Sheesh. And then I think Sid has a really funny line there. I'd invite him over for dinner. It feels bad for him almost like, but I'm afraid he'd eat the dog. He'd eat Torgal. Funny. Anyways, you end up having to fight it though.
Yeah.
So you defeat that, and then you're kind of making your way through. You see a royalist, so a soldier from the kingdom of Waloed. So that's who they're talking about when they say royalists. So you have your Imperials and you have your royalists. Imperials are Sanbreque, royalists are Waloed.
Right.
So they see some Waloed soldiers and they sort of sneak, to sort of spy on them. Benedikta is there. They have some guy who is an informant. He's like telling them something, probably about Lost Wing. Like he's probably from Lost Wing and he's like selling them out.
That's right, yeah.
And she like kicks him away and he's like, oh, didn't I prove my loyalty? It's like, well, you sold out your friends. And so she like stabs him or whatever. Yep. And then another soldier kind of comes up behind them and so it's like, oh, we're caught. So now we have to fight against some soldiers there. That leads us into Lost Wing itself where this group, Benedikta's intelligencers, I think is what they're called, they've sort of captured the people of Lost Wing and they've locked them down in a cellar downstairs, and they're there to get the dominant of fire that we're there to find.
Yes, and they seemed more or less successful, right? They kind of
so
bound him in chains.
They got his companion first, the girl, and they hoped that in capturing her that he would reveal himself. Yeah. So you free Gav and the other people of Lost Wing, and then you're just chasing this soldier who leads you straight to Benedikta, and she gets pissed about this. Like,
that's right.
It's like, Imperials are here. It's like, and you just led them straight to us. Like, what are you doing? No mercy. She like kills him. But no, the idea was that since they didn't get the dominant, that they would get the companion, and then he would come back. But then at the end of that scene, she summons one of her. I don't know the names of. There's like the twin enemies you fight that she sort of summons to fight you.
But they're also flying, right?
Yeah, so they're like flying type.
They're kind
monsters.
of like I think Sid calls them harpies.
Yeah, something like that.
That's pretty fun.
So you fight one of them, and then Benedikta's even surprised that you could fight that thing.
Yes,
just taking note of you. Sid shows up, and then the soldier shows up. And he's like, we got the dominant now. We're going back to Caer Norvent. So they took the dominant and the dominant's companion, the girl traveling with the dominant, back to this castle where they're going to be questioning him / trying to like manipulate him and joining their side. Right. They want another dominant for Waloed, right? But there's some good dialogue in between Sid and Benedikta here. Is this how you recruit all your charges? She says to Sid, right? Talking of Clive. Don't recall you complaining, Benedikta. I love that comeback. He's really good with like the witty comebacks.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's like, it was exactly the same with you. Like, what are you talking about? Then she asks him why he betrayed Waloed, his kingdom. He says, why? Because I've had enough of you and your king's antics. So they have a little bit of a spat back and forth there, and then she kind of runs off, and they've got the dominant. Now, there was some good dialogue between Sid and Clive back here.
Yeah.
The ruins are everywhere, so that's talking about the ruins that you already talked about. I also took a note that anytime Sid seems to use his powers, he coughs blood.
Yes, quite a bit.
So this is probably what was making Joshua sick.
Sure,
was just using his powers at all. So he uses his little healing phoenix powers on, and he starts coughing after that. So it takes a toll on the body being a dominant and using the powers at all. So that was what was making him sick.
Would also explain why the Duke's father died early. It's
right.
I think you brought that up actually.
So. Let's see, I took down this dialogue. Save for our knack, dominants and bearers are no different from anyone else. The ability to use magic or summon great beasts should command respect, but instead has left us outcasts. Our kind are used and discarded like tools, Yet we are men, so why must we die as less? And I think Clive's response to that was, I see, so what you're saying is you want to start a war.
A revolution, right?
He says, you flatter me, lad, but my days as a firebrand are long behind me. No, I wish only to offer our kind a choice, a place where they can die on their own terms. And then, Clive, what exactly do you plan on doing when you find this dominant of fire? And he says, what do you think? I'll show him the mercy he showed my brother and cut out the tongue of any man who tries to talk me out of it.
Which is a threat to Sid.
Stop bringing it up. Yeah. I'm doing this, no matter what you say. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then they were talking about just icons.
Yeah, the second icon of fire, right, and how that's kind of not possible.
And Clive is saying, so you don't believe me. Like, you're suggesting you don't believe me. And Sid quotes scripture. And lo, the Creator did make the elements 8 icons to serve the keepers of the one law. Yep. Not that I've ever set too much store by holy doctrine, but on that point, it's clear.
It's clear.
Fire has always just had the one warden, as of all the rest. A new one can't be born until the previous one dies, and even that can take years. The thing is, you don't strike me as a liar, which leaves but one person who might be able to shed some light on the matter, and they're in Lost Wing. The dominant they're going after.
Yeah.
As our Waloed friends, I'd imagine. So they're all going there to get that in.
So Sid is becoming more interested.
Yes.
By the way, I forgot about this as I'm reading it now. 8 holy icons.
8 icons.
8 icons. This is good because you mentioned there were 16.
Yes. That could be that. Yes, that actually
8,
could be it. There could
because
be
there's 2 dominants of each element. Yeah.
Could be.
And that's 16. That could be it.
That could be it.
I was going to say, when you say 16, as you do number stuff above a certain number, it's either a double or some multiple of a smaller number.
Yeah.
So the number 16 doesn't have meaning in and of itself, other than the fact that it is the number 8
connected
twice.
To 8, yeah.
And so here we go. We're finding the number 8 now.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think that might be interesting.
So then the 16 symbols could be the 16 icons. That's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so they're taking the bearers from Lost Wing to Caer Norvent. They've taken a lot of prisoners, and then they took the dominant with them. So now they're making their plans to go there and get the dominant, which is what Clive is there for, and get the prisoners, which is what Sid is there for, to return the bearers back to Lost Wing.
And they keep showing the moon. They've shown the moon so many times.
A lot of times.
It's a crescent moon at this stage. But it's 13 years later, and that red star is still there. It's crazy. Yes. And even in a different phase of the moon, the red star is still
in the same position.
Right there.
Same position.
Huge thing to note there. Also, it's mentioned that there might be an airship in the village.
Yeah, right? There's an airship.
But Sid's like, but we don't know what to do with it. It doesn't fly or anything.
Yeah, he's like, what's that structure there in the village he's pointing out before they arrive in Lost Wing? He's like, they call it an airship, but I think its flying days are behind it.
Exactly.
So
but
there's some
as a video game player,
possible foreshadowing.
We know that its flying days are likely not at all behind it.
Probably not.
But ahead of it.
Okay, so, and he also says before they take off, I've been thinking, if our friend is a dominant, why not just burn the royalists to a crisp? There's a reason he's holding back, and I reckon it has something to do with his partner. So what makes you say that?
The partner meaning
Clive.
the girl.
Yeah, the girl that he's with, right? What makes you say that? And he says, one of the villagers I talked to said the two were separated. So which they don't show, because in the scene,
you didn't see
when Benedikta's talking to him, they're in the same room together. But
and
apparently,
she's using the girl to threaten him.
Right. She's like
stabs
her in the shoulder. But apparently they were taken to Caer Norvent separately in order to, again, threaten, if you use your dominant of fire powers and kill us, like, we'll kill your companion. So so anyways, he says, one of the villagers I said that the two were separated. If the Waloeders have her, our dominants like to think twice before starting any fires. Whoever he is, he's shown himself to have a level head. He's careful, cunning, and he doesn't want to be found. This could spell trouble for us and the royalists both. So we're dealing with somebody who is not who thinks things through. Is not like quick to anger or we need to be careful with this person.
Someone who's cold and calculated.
Yes. And then Clive asks as they're on their way there, what are the royalists thinking? Why take the stronghold that they've no chance of holding? And Sid responds, when they've no intent, why take a stronghold they've no chance of holding? Because they've no intention of holding it is essentially the answer.
Oh, they don't want to.
The king is up to something, so they're doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
Clive says, the king? And he says, well, you don't think they're acting on a whim, do you? This is one of His Majesty's cunning stunts, and he has sent his best to execute it. So Sid would know. He used to be a Lord Commander in this army, in the Waloed army. So he knows the king personally. Okay, so they arrive now at the fort, and they're kind of looking up, and this is the moon you're talking about, crescent moon.
Yep.
And Clive asks Sid, what's in it for him? Like, why is he doing this? And he says, this isn't just about dominance and bearers. It's about all of us. What I want is to build a place where it doesn't matter what you are, but who you are. But our world isn't ready for a place like that. So until it is, I use the power I've been given to show people there's hope. I really liked that line. It really struck me for some reason. Because I think it's kind of common for people in our own age to feel this way. Like, our world isn't ready for this ideal we have.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I guess kind of no matter what sort of ideology you follow or whatever, it seems like the world just is primed for conflict. People are not ready to live in a world, a peaceful world with each other, a united world. It's just like there's just something stopping us from getting to that point. So it can be really easy to become cynical, to become, to give up on people.
Yeah.
I've felt that way many, many times in my life, where it's just like, dude, I hate people. I'm so sick of people. Like, the people deserve to die. Just like end it already. Like, just freaking launch the nukes. Like, having the strength, I guess, to, in the face of that, be able to still show, no, there is something about us where there's the potential for what that world we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm not fighting to fix it. I'm not fighting to with any sort of hope that I'll be able to actually get us much closer to the world that I foresee. But I want to at least give the people around me some hope that it is a possibility, that it's something worth fighting for, and that someday we might get there. And that's kind of just the attitude you have to take, unless you want to live in a way in which you hate your fellow man and have no hope for anything, and just live this cynical life. Yeah. So I don't know. It's a really simple line, but it sort of struck me as being like, I don't know. I just like Sid a lot, I guess.
Yeah, he's good.
Like, I just like him a lot as a character.
And the way he goes about things, and especially, as he talks about his days as a firebrand are over, yet look what he's doing, right? It's like, well, okay, he's not doing what he did when he was younger. He's kind of admitting, like, maybe I made mistakes when I was younger, maybe I was too headstrong. But what he's doing now is strategically, slowly building up essentially something that can eventually accomplish what he wants. Instead of, wanting it now and doing whatever it takes to get it now, he's like, no, this is going to take time, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. Let's see. I took the same note about the crescent moon and the Metia. Okay, so now we get a scene with Benedikta and the King of Waloed. They're in bed together. He mentions how most of the eastern territory has been taken over by orcs, so beastmen of the Ash continent. So most of the eastern side of the Ash continent's been taken over by orcs. The dark swallows more of the realm with each passing day. The land is starved of the ether that gives it life. And as the fringes fade, the people flock to the mother crystals, desperate for the blessing. The war we wage for possession of that blessing, it breaks us from within, hastening us to our destruction. I unite the dominance, he says, that we may bring an end to the strife, and found a new order to see us unto tomorrow. The world must be restored, and I will see it so. So we're getting a little bit of the reason why he's doing what he's doing. He's trying to get all the dominance onto his side.
Yeah.
So that he can create some sort of new world. So that's what he's saying, but Sid seems to think he's got some other more twisted sort of
of course.
ambitions, right?
I don't know. Anybody who's trying to take over the world will have some dream of how the world will be better once they do it.
Yes.
Right? It's just your means are so horrific that the ends, not only are they unattainable through those means, but they just pale in comparison to, like, it's unachievable by the way you're doing it. And that seems to be what Sid has more or less realized himself.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's better, if you want peace, start with peace. If you want peace, don't start with war.
Yes. Exactly.
Now, I don't know where Sid's going, or I don't know, maybe there will still be a war. But
yeah, and then, she brings up, we might have already accomplished this had Sid not betrayed us.
Oof.
It's like, why do you keep
Sid.
talking about him?
Well,
you really like lust for his embrace like so much, like, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm sorry. Like,
Nope,
it's only you. It's only you."
But
she
know.
let it slip a little bit.
We know
what she really feels.
She's been around a bit.
Yes,
and it's so funny because she's a good actress. She's good at manipulating people. So it's really hard to tell when she's being sincere. And the assumption is just that she's insincere all the time.
Right.
And that she has her own motivations for doing everything. Yep. And that she would drop any of these guys in a moment.
Yeah. So then she's up on the tower a little bit later, and she knows that Sid and Clive are coming. They're setting a trap for them.
Yeah, she can tell.
So they're like, lead them into the chapel area, that's where she'll be waiting for them, right?
Yeah, I love it.
So you kind of go through
chapel
this.
Looks awesome.
Yeah,
cool.
You go through this whole sort of level. I'll just kind of quickly go over this point because it's not that important in the scheme of the podcast, but a lot of the maps so far in the game I haven't loved. They've all been like extremely linear at this
Quite
point.
A bit, yeah.
I mean, to the point of feeling restrictive. It's like, why can't I climb that like yay high box to go that way? It's that's a plot wall. You're not supposed to go that way. You're supposed to go this way. But I liked the castle, this Caer Norvent here, because it gives you a couple different ways to get to the same place. So there was a little bit more of, I felt like, satisfying exploration. Many times I went, wait a minute, I'm going to stop and go back that other way and see if I missed something over there.
Yeah.
And so this was the first time I felt that in the game.
That's cool.
So I really liked this section. I liked the battles here. I kind of liked the whole scenario. I thought it was really, really nice. It builds up to this fight with first Benedikta and then her in her semi-primed phase and then her in the fully primed phase, Garuda. There's like 3 fights against her, and the way it sort of leads up to those, and they're all very, very good. But I liked this level. I just thought the level was well designed, more so than any of the other areas we had been to before this. I didn't really like the Greatwood too much. There's been some other areas, even like Stillwind back in the demo where you're going through that abandoned village all the goblins. Same thing. It felt too restricted. It's not open enough to feel like a zone, like in Final Fantasy 12 or something like that, where you can actually explore it a little bit, right? It's just it's been more hallway like in Final Fantasy 13, but I liked this level because it sort of opened it up a little bit more. But you make your way up to the top, and she's waiting for you there, and Sid says, "Little late for prayer, isn't it?" She says, "Do I seem so desperate as to grovel at the feet of a false god? I was waiting for you. Not for too long, I hope. All this for a midnight chat? Well, let's chat then. Where are the men and women you took from Lost Wing?" So he wants the slaves back, the branded back. "You mean where's the dominant? Waloed shall be requiring his services indefinitely. Come back to me, Sidolphus. I need you." I guess we had kind of skipped briefly the scene where she had been. We alluded to it, but didn't really get into the scene where she was trying to convince the dominant to join them, and she was stabbing the companion. And
I didn't have a ton of notes there. It was pretty straightforward.
I don't either. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, because they're trying to hide who this person is.
Yes.
And so it was a short scene.
Yeah. So I didn't feel like there was like really a ton to go over there, but that happened before this. So she's trying to get him to come back. Think of all the things we can create together the world that we can build. You need me?
That's so classic, by the way. That's
right?
like the most cliche line.
It
ever.
is about as tropey as it gets as far as like
100%.
fantasy dialogue for the villain to convince the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unconvincing at all. Like, not even for
Not
a
even a
moment.
little bit.
Yeah. Think of the world we can build together. No.
Yeah, right. No, your king is the one who needs me. I'm all for building a new world, just not his.
Yeah.
That bastard's dreams are as twisted as his promises are false, and I want no part of them. But King Barnabas saved you, and this is how you speak of him? Have you no shred of loyalty? What, to a leader who would use me like he uses you? You know nothing of me, Sidolphus. So I think you're right. There's something we should touch on here. This conversation is one that we have seen, like, I don't know, 100 times in different stories. It's the same conversation of this. It's tropey.
For this, yeah.
Yet, the performances are really good.
No, they are very good.
And so the dialogue still works.
Yeah, I think so.
You really can kind of feel individually, relate to the individual Sid rather than to just this sort of, I've heard this conversation and a million things before.
Yeah. Honestly, I think Sid in particular makes it very interesting.
He's just such a good actor.
Well, Benedikta's throwing the tropes, and Sid is just like
rejecting,
just slapping them all down, like really well. Like, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I liked a couple of his lines. She's you know nothing of me, Sidolphus, and he's like, you're right. I don't know who you are anymore, or what you want. I only know what you used to say. That you were tired of running, that you just wanted to be free from it all, which is what he's doing. He's providing that freedom.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, you weren't lying to me then, so what changed? Like, what made you think you had to sacrifice who you were to get what you wanted? Mm-hmm. She's like, I use my talents to my advantage. You tell me that there's shame in that?
Yep.
And he's like, if there's no shame, then why do you feel so sorry for yourself?
See, this is great because Benedikta is running up against somebody who knows her. Who knows her very well deep down. None of these other people that she's been with lately know her very well.
No.
But Sid does.
Yeah.
And so he can see through everything that she's doing, everything she's saying. She's throwing excuses, she's pretending, I don't have anything to be ashamed of, and he's like, I know you. Why do you feel so sorry for yourself? And she screams with rage.
Yep.
She can't deal with Sid. He knows her too well. She can't do what she normally does with other people.
Well, she's not challenged by anybody else either. Like,
true,
there's
actually.
nobody who challenges her on anything she says or does or commands.
Right.
And so, like, coming up against him, like, it's very frustrating for her. Like, someone who not only will not listen to what she's saying or will not agree or will not do what she wants, but who can pierce through what she's saying and like actually show her that she's being a hypocrite or that she's lying or that she's not being true to herself or that whatever.
All of that.
It's like, she makes her question herself and she's not going to stand that anymore. So they start fighting and that fight is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's good.
But again, I'm left with questions. So the result of this fight is Sid gets knocked into a statue that then falls on top of him. That
statue is so cool. We'll talk about it in a minute.
And Benedikta walks that direction.
She is positive he's dead.
Leaves the twins to fight us and finish us off. Did she just not check?
It seemed like he rolled away. Like, he just, like, I don't think that fell on him.
We encounter him after this, and my whole thought was like, what? Like, he's just sitting there?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm hurt, and I need a moment to catch my breath. Go after her. But, like, she didn't check?
Yeah.
And also, if she did check, she left him alive. Why? She just, like, walks back upstairs and just, like, looking out over the balcony. Like, why do villains, like, never, ever finish the job? It's so stupid.
I don't know.
Like, I don't get it. Like, what did she do? She is that what I'm meant to believe? Because the point of view goes away from her, so we don't really see what happens. We just fight.
But when she sees Sid again, she's, like, screaming, how are you still alive?
Well, but was she saying that to him or to us because she'd been fighting us the whole time?
Well, she said it to us first, and then Sid shows up, and he's like, give it up, Benedikta. And she's like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead.
Yeah, so, I mean, did she literally just walk upstairs and
I guess so.
that's just dumb.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. I'm sorry, it's dumb. Like,
you've got to verify the kill.
Yes.
Yeah.
How hard is it to just walk up there and like stab the guy
Right.
and like end it? Like, why do they never do that? Why couldn't they have left it off where
if
they're
she
at some
had
kind
to
of,
run away,
they're at some
instead
kind of stalemate, or they take the battle elsewhere?
Sure.
And they're fighting upstairs now, and then by the time you arrive there, he's injured
Yes.
and says, "Now you got to."
Or she pushes him away and then runs the opposite direction instead of
Yes.
going right past him.
Yes.
In order to go to the next place. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't like that.
Totally agree. The chapel is sick, by the way. So
Okay.
my question here, is this the goddess Grigor that we heard of earlier? Because
they brought that name up.
Be
several
blessed by
times.
the goddess Gregor or Grigor.
Grigor, yeah.
And there in this, well, first off, the name Benedikta, it means blessed, right?
Oh.
Benedikta or benediction, like
like
to bless,
benediction,
a blessing. But so her Benedikta, whose name means blessed, says that this is a false god. In the statue, there's a goddess, very plainly dressed, by the way, not like ornamented and flowing. She just like a very simple, almost like a nightgown that the goddess is wearing.
Yeah.
And her palms are facing towards us, but her hands are down by her side. And there's a circle behind her. But unlike the halo circles you see in some Christian art, this circle is bigger and centers more on her heart or her chest, right? But it's kind of framing her in that way. Now, this is the one that almost falls on top of Sid. I thought it looked really cool. I really liked it. So I wanted to point it out. I think that's Grigor.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't even look at it that closely. I was just confounded at how she wasn't finishing him off. What are you doing?
Oh, it's so funny.
I mean, I guess you could. I don't know. There's probably ways you could explain it away. She loves him. She doesn't really want him to die. Maybe she's trying to make him think about it a little bit longer. I don't know, but it's
right.
It would have been better. I feel like had they continued fighting, and then like you're left there to fight the twins, and you get up there, and then at that moment he comes falling down, blah, and he's all messed up. He's like, "Okay, you take care of the rest. I can't.
Sure.
I can't fight anymore."
That would have been good.
I would have liked that a lot better.
So when we get up to the roof where she went, she's just staring at the moon, or I guess the star next to the moon once again.
Metia.
She's just chilling, looking up there. And then she says, "Fool is the shepherd who heeds every bleat of the flock."
Yeah, I liked this metaphor.
That's a really interesting line.
Yeah.
It's almost like the opposite of the Jesus shepherd metaphors, where you leave the 99 to go after the one.
Yes, right.
And she's saying you're a fool if you leave the 99 and go after the one. You're a fool. And this is her ideology, though, right? Her idea is like, don't worry about everyone. You can't help everyone. Just take what you can and help who you want, and then do what helps yourself, which is a reversal of the Jesus metaphor, which is everyone's valuable, even the least of the people. Go out and help them, right?
Right. And then she says, Clive keeps... sort of standing up to her, like challenging her, and she's treating it like, I'm not on the same level as you. You're not getting it.
Yeah.
Like you're really not getting it, and it's starting to get annoying. Her final line there is, "Come, little lamb, to the slaughter with you, but must I spell it out for you, Brandon?" Like, are you stupid? Like, you cannot. Freaking,
I'm
don't
a dominant.
stand a chance.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are, right?
And think of the other dominants that we fought. Like, we have not really seen her full power yet.
Nope.
And think of what happened with Ifrit and Phoenix. Like, everyone just got incinerated immediately. Like, when these dominants, even with Titan and elsewhere, when these dominants show their full power, it is a destructive force of nature. But Clive is okay with dying, I suppose. So he's like, so what? I'll do what I can. You kill me, you kill me. Because
all he cares about is
revenge,
getting the dominant, like the fire dominant that he's here after. Just tell me where he's. I'm going to die after this anyways.
Exactly.
He's given up on life. He just, the one purpose, he's driven for that. Yeah. But ends up fighting her, and this is a good fight. I really liked this one. This is probably my favorite. Not the Garuda fight after this, but this fight against her when she's semi-primed and she got the wings and stuff.
Yeah.
It was tough. I died on this one. I've only died, I think, twice in the game, And this was one of the times during that part. When you die, the game brings you back with all your potions filled up, so it kind of makes it easier to like finish, and it'll do like auto saves in between phases of the fight, so you don't have to redo the whole fight over again. It's like just start that phase again. That part. So it's not too hard for that reason. But yeah, it's a really cool fight. All of the spectacle, I guess I'll say, just generally in the game is like super well executed. Like,
oh, absolutely,
it's like really, really intense stuff, and you can really feel like the intensity of these fights. And the other thing too is I had talked about before, not necessarily loving how flashy the effects are in the combat and feeling like, it's covering up too much of the screen. It's hard to kind of read the action. I've found that has not been the case when I'm playing the game. Yeah. It was more an issue of watching the trailers and like, trying to like see it. But like when I'm actually doing it and I know the moves I'm doing,
it doesn't seem so chaotic.
It's not really like that big of an issue.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So like,
I found it too, but we aren't doing, by this point in the game, we still aren't quite doing
true.
like the big,
we got lots more
combos.
Stuff to learn.
Yeah.
But there's still kind of a lot of flashy stuff you can do.
There is,
I've found that it hasn't been as bad as I was expecting it was going to be. It's been pretty. It's been fine. I've actually kind of enjoyed the combat in this game a lot. Okay, but you end up just defeating her in that form. She's just has no idea how that's even possible. Just totally confused. How? Who are you? What are you?
Yep.
He keeps demanding that she tell him where the dominant is, and she's just struck by like, it's not possible that you defeated me.
Yeah.
And so he reaches out towards her, I would assume to grab her and sort of like shake her. Like, hey, like, listen, like, just tell me where he's at. But in the act of doing that, somehow...
Yeah, I wonder how this works.
...takes her... like we said earlier, the blessing of Garuda. So similar to his blessing of the Phoenix, he's not the dominant of Phoenix, but he has some of the powers of Phoenix that were gifted to him by Joshua. In this case, he's taking the Garuda blessing from her. He somehow steals it. And this leaves her, at least for a period of time, like totally drained maybe of ether, or I'm not sure what exactly the perfect explanation is, but she is afraid that she has actually lost Garuda altogether. And this is why I was a little confused, because she says,
I can't hear her voice.
Hear her, she's gone.
Yeah.
It gives the impression that Garuda, the whole Eikon, is gone from her.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
And she's demanding him, give it back, back. So it gives the impression he took Garuda, like he's the dominant of Garuda now.
Right.
But that's not it. He just took the blessing, and it took her a while to be able to sort of reconnect or reactivate. And that's when it shows like it goes into her head, and then you see like the neuron firing, right? Like the little energy going through the synapses. And then she like totally loses control. But that only happens on the back of a scene where her and her intelligencers are sort of, they're like in the woods, and they're ambushed by some bandits, and like all the men are killed, and she's the only one left.
She can't do anything. Yeah.
And so they're like threatening to sell her as a slave, even a sex slave is what is insinuated here, but they're going to like try her out first, right? To like, it would be a disservice to our customers to not like try the goods first. It's pretty like intense stuff. And she has a flashback to when she was saved by Sid in probably a similar situation.
Right, that's right. This is the first time we see her previously,
Yeah, they can't hurt you anymore is what he says. No. And I really liked just the whole presentation of how they went about insinuating this stuff without actually showing anything explicit. You still really feel the intensity of it, right? Like it still feels really heavy. But like they don't have to like go too far with it. I think they walked that line really well in how they presented this, and they did it in a sort of an abstract way, which was kind of cool too. Right. But she grabs his hand in the flashback, but then the hand slips away, which again is an abstract way of representing she let him, this connection she had, this like real relationship, this genuine sort of connection with a person, this person who wanted to genuinely help her, she allowed that to get away, so to speak. And now, then her line in response to that is, is this my punishment for not listening to you, right? And then that's when she loses it. Like, this wretched world, it deserves to die. And she goes crazy, and that's what activates Garuda. It comes
That's
back.
right, yeah.
And so then she's primed, fully primed, but she kind of with Ifrit, when Clive primes, he's not in control of the dominant.
Right, she loses
all.
complete control,
Yeah.
Which
not
makes me
controlling.
wonder, that's not the case with the other dominants though, right?
Yeah, so there's actually there's an ATL on this that kind of explains that for the most part, dominants are in control when they prime. Like Joshua was in control. You heard his voice. He was making intentional choices and fighting, and he was struggling with it, but he was controlling it. I would assume Shiva and Titan, when they were fighting, both those dominants were in control of the Eikons when they were fighting. In this case, this is a very chaotic fight in which both dominants are not in control of the Eikon.
Yeah.
There's just totally
crazy.
running rampant, just massive destructive forces hitting each other. But yeah, Clive does not control Ifrit when it happens, and in this case, she's no longer in control. That's what Sid says as they're looking out when the vortex in the distance. It's we better get out of here. She's lost it. This is going to be bad. But Clive hears someone calling to him in a different language. They have the text and the subtitles. Let's see. They says a couple things. It says mythos a couple of times. It says awaken later when he actually primes and transforms. But there's a voice calling to him, and so he says no. Someone's calling to me. I have to go. He's well, damn it, lad, you don't have to listen just because it's calling you, right? I should have stayed with Gav, right? So they run into the eye of the storm.
So, as far as the different language goes, I don't know exactly what it is. I have a guess, though. There's that other language that Elwyn speaks when he talks to the owl.
The magic
that makes the owl
incantation for the Stolasis, I think is the name of that owl.
And then there was also the time when Clive becomes Ifrit, initially at the Phoenix Gate, where he sees the hooded figure, and the hooded figure says something. And it's translated at the bottom. It was I found you or something.
Yes, I found you. That was what it was.
But it was not in English, though. It was spoken in a different language.
Because I remember when I was playing the demo, I was trying to read the lips, and I was I can't figure out what he's saying.
Right. But it's a different language.
Yeah, which is smart. I like that they did that, because I think a lot of people would have been trying to what's he saying? What's he saying?
Yeah.
And he's speaking some other language. But the dominant is there when you arrive, sort of in the eye of the tempest, and it's he's leading you.
Yeah.
And Clive is asking him you called me here, why? Why'd you do that?
Right.
And he turns around and just sort of smiles, and then Garuda shows up, and then you got to fight Garuda.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like the effect.
There's a line here.
Go ahead.
Awaken, child of fate.
Yes.
And is this said by that hooded figure? Because he sees him going up the mountain, right?
Yeah.
Awaken, child of fate. Another way of saying child of fate is liberi fatali. That would be Latin.
Yep, that's true. From back in Final Fantasy VIII.
Final Fantasy VIII. So he is a child of fate. He needs to awaken to something else. I feel like this is an interesting FF8 reference, at least with Clive not really knowing what part he's playing in all of this.
Yeah, what
and
his fate
being
is.
manipulated a little bit behind the scenes.
Yeah. So you have to fight Garuda first, on foot. And you beat that phase of the boss. She's grabbing you and crushing you. And then this is where he hears that line, the awaken child of fate, awaken Ifrit. And so then, ignites. And then Ifrit comes out, and you have a big fight between Ifrit and Garuda. How did you feel about this combat?
Well, it was crazy. I thought, well, I don't know exactly what to say. It was better than the Phoenix one.
Yeah.
It was a lot better than the Phoenix fight.
Yeah.
It was a lot more involved. I thought it was really good. But there's something different about it. And I don't know, because one thing that you said last episode, or maybe it was the live stream, I'm starting to get them confused now. Which did you actually say it or not? Because if you didn't, then we want to say it now. That older games did this too. Like Xenogears had the very clunky fighting of the, what was it, when you're in the robots but at the city.
Gears, in when you're doing the tournament.
Yeah, in the tournament. Mm-hmm. And it's like a different kind of gameplay, and it's actually really cool. It's just not the most tuned
it's not
gameplay,
like you're playing Street Fighter or something. It's
exactly.
it's a fighting game, but it's kind of janky and not necessarily fine-tuned. Yeah.
So I don't want to hold it against it, because it's cool that the gameplay style keeps changing. Yeah. And like with the Nier games, I'm really a fan of that.
Yeah.
I don't always want the combat to be the same every time, right? So I appreciate that. That being said, I don't know. It wasn't the best. What about you?
Well, it's just simple, but
of course,
this goes along with kind of what people were telling us in response to our thoughts about how simple the Phoenix fight was. Apparently, these are meant to sort of rev up over the course of the game. And
good.
Each fight is supposed to become a little bit more involved, a little bit more
I did notice that a little bit, but okay.
Yeah, so in the first one, it's basically just you hold down your triangle button to shoot fire, and then you just sort of aim at Ifrit, and that was it. This time, it's you're allowed to move around a little bit.
Yeah, you can actually move.
And you've got 3 sort of attacks. You've got like a lunging forward sort of thing where you close the gap between you and Garuda. Yeah. You've got your sort of normal square melee attack, and then you've got like a ranged attack. Yeah. And then, you have to watch out for certain attacks where you dodge, and so it's a little bit more involved, but still pretty basic, pretty simple. Yeah. And what I'm expecting is that these should become more complex.
That's good to hear.
The farther
so it's a trend. It's going to keep getting more and more.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the intention with that. So
that's cool. As it is, though, this one did remind me of that Xenogears tournament.
It does feel a little bit like that, like a mech battle.
Yeah, it's a mech battle. Yeah, you got
instead
your
of mechs,
moveset.
you've got your what do they call them in Japan? The giant monsters. What is the term they use for that? Fetch.
Why do I do this? Why do I forget as soon as this
Kaiju.
Happens?
Kaiju. Thank you.
The
Collector. Kaiju. It's like a kaiju battle.
Basically, yeah.
It's pretty sweet. I think the thing... I'm fine mechanically with it. I think the only thing I didn't love about it was that almost half the fight was just FMV QTE sequences. Yeah. It's just you're watching a cutscene, you press square once in a while.
You do the things, and then, you just watch the cutscene.
It's like half the fight is that. Mm. And that is one thing I don't think I'm going to ever be coming around on with this game. I've kind of waited to really say this. I don't like the QTE. Okay, we're going into the next phase of the boss, so we're going to do a little cinematic, and you're going to have to press R1 or square or press square really fast. And
it's like, just give me the cutscene, don't have me do anything.
Just make the boss change phases, and let's continue fighting, please. I don't need to watch a cutscene. I don't know. I'd be curious to see how other people feel about it, whether they like it, whether they feel it's exciting. And cinematic and cool, and they're really feeling the energy of the scene, and it's enhancing it for them to see that. I'd be interested in hearing people's perspectives on that. For me, it really just feels like you're taking control away. Because, there's plenty of other games where a boss will have several phases. Yeah. The Souls games or Elden Ring or something like that. Boss will go into the next phase, but it doesn't ever take control out of the player's hands to do a cutscene. You just keep running around and it does its transformation, and then you're like, oh crap, what do I do now? I don't know. And you start panicking. But you never lose contact with your avatar of the world. You're still in control of it. And I'm not a fan of that control being taken away for the sake of some sort of spectacle, cinematic, cool. Okay, we're going to go 3,000 feet in the air, and you're going to grab her foot and throw her back down again. It's cool, but I'm not watching a movie, man. I'm playing a game. I want to feel like I'm participating in that action. Yeah.
It's what I really just don't like is the giant button that just is superimposed on the screen, where it's hey, by the way, you're playing a video game, and push this button. You have this much time to do it.
Yeah.
That's that is a little bit too fourth wall breaking.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, the numbers, and there's a little HUD elements, but when it's big in the center of the screen and it's kind of like taking precedence, and it's like, push this button, it's a little too like, it treats me like a kid a little bit too much. I don't really like it.
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of QTE. I wasn't a fan of it even when it was a new thing back in the God of War days and in the Resident Evil 4 days when that was like, you know, kind of a trendy new mechanic. Like, especially now, I don't know. Not a fan. But you defeat Garuda. It is kind of cool how he does it. Because they can regrow their limbs in the middle of the fight, right?
Oh yeah.
Like she blows Ifrit's entire arm off, and he just grows it back. And like he does the same thing. He sort of like rips pieces off of her, rips her arm off, I think, and she grows it back. So like in order to kill her, he just like keeps bringing her in closer to the body and just like incinerates her. Just the fire gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and she just burns her.
That's crazy.
Alive.
That's crazy.
So like that was cool. I liked that idea. It just like incinerates her basically to kill her.
So then it's just like smoldering ashes, like a crater of smoldering ashes.
Yeah.
But Ifrit doesn't come out of the Eikon stage.
No.
So Clive is still there, and then Sid shows up, and Sid is like, he needs to stop. He's going to find something else to damage while he's in this state.
Yep.
So Sid decides to shock
transform
him.
into Ramu and do the
full Ramu.
It's freaking sweet.
Yeah, really, really cool. And then does this super powerful attack, and then of course is really coughing afterwards. Like, it's a hard recovery for him, but he has to do it. And I love what he says afterwards with Clive when Clive wakes up. He's like,
the ghost you've been chasing. Was inside you all along.
That was so good because it was I didn't know you had it in you.
Yep.
And that line, that was such a good line right there. But it's so bad. Like anyway, I love Sid. He's hilarious.
He's great.
But he's also basically saying like, well, if you want to fight me, because Clive is really upset that he found out I'm Ifrit. I can't believe it. It was me. But Sid, he says something along the lines of,
you're talking about when he's in the prison cell after the scene. Yeah,
he's like, if you want to fight, I think I could take you.
Yeah, right.
But, let's not go there if we don't have to.
Yeah, let's because then the whole next mission, which we'll get into next time, is him trying to convince him there's still a reason to go after this dominant. There's still more answers.
Even though you were Ifrit, you didn't have control. That dude did it to you, basically.
Yeah, there's still a mystery here. Yeah. It's not time to give up just yet.
Don't let him get away with it.
Right. But I also liked his last line to Benedikta, who's lying there dead on the battlefield.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because he finds that pennant.
Mm-hmm. Which he kind of places on her corpse.
Yeah.
Like, why did you have to listen to him? I'm guessing he means the king of Waloed.
Yeah.
Like, Benna, this can't be what you wanted, can it? Just the regret of not having been able to bring her back to convince her, right? Really good. And then he just walks off and kind of leaves her there in the smoldering ashes of their battle. And that's where we're going to leave off for today.
Okay, great.
I'm thinking that, like, the goals moving forward should more or less be to get to the next sort of big Eikon battle. So whatever that is next, I don't know whether it's Titan or
I do. It's Odin versus Bahamut, and it's the very next scene.
I mean, like...
just kidding. That's just an FMV, like a cutscene.
I mean, like... Clive's next battle against the next major dominant.
Because they're introducing new characters now. It's like, okay, who's the next dominant that we're gonna chase down?
I'm thinking it's probably, my guess is it's going to be Titan next, but I guess it could be. Nah, they won't do Bahamut or Odin until later. It's going to be Titan next, I would think, just based on my knowledge of Final Fantasy. Like, Titan is a lower level summon than Odin and and Bahamut. Those come later, so. I'm guessing Titan will probably be the next one, but so that's kind of where I'm going to try to get up to for next time. So that should be the goal. All right, we have Dude McGuy who has been he has volunteered to kind of go through comments for us on the podcast moving forward and sort of pick out good ones for us. We don't have time right now to go through those, so I'll kind of make that a priority for the next. Podcast to lead off with that. I want to get a little bit more into interacting with the comments and things like that on every episode rather than sort of waiting more towards the end, of the series.
That makes sense.
So feel free to leave comments. He'll go through those and pick out some good ones for us to respond to. I'm sure there's a lot of things we missed. I'm sure there's a lot of things that we might have gotten wrong. So feel free to correct us, and we'll address that next time. All right. Okay. See you guys next time. Peace out.